For the past 4 months, I had been surviving on ambition and copious amounts of coffee. It was a grueling stretch of late nights, early mornings, and weekends dedicated to spreadsheets instead of social outings, all for one monumental project. This account was so vast, it promised to redefine my entire career. And finally, it was complete. The client was ecstatic, the presentation had been faultless, and the contract was sealed. But the true prize, the ultimate reward, was yet to come. I sat at my desk, rereading the email for perhaps the 20th time. Eleanor, your efforts were exceptional. Consider these a personal expression of gratitude. Enjoy the event. Attached was the proof. 2 prime event tickets, 40-yard line, front row. My heart pounded with excitement. I had never attended such a major sporting event before, and as a lifelong fan, this was beyond a wildest dream. My hands trembled as I printed the email, meticulously checking the specifics. The client had forwarded the tickets directly to my superior, Mr. Finch, a senior partner at our firm. It made perfect sense. He typically handled client appreciation logistics. I envisioned the moment he'd enter my office, flash that rare approving grin, and present them with a well-deserved Eleanor. However, that moment never materialized. Instead, 3 days later, Mr. Finch sauntered into my office without a knock, his usual arrogant swagger somehow amplified. He leaned against my desk as if he owned the very air I breathed. "I hear you received some excellent news," he remarked. I smiled, expecting him to finally produce the tickets. "Yes, I truly appreciate it. I poured everything into that endeavor," I replied. He nodded, almost with amusement. "You certainly did, which is precisely why I wanted to discuss the tickets with you." Something about the way he uttered "discuss" sent a shiver down my spine. "Right," I said cautiously. Mr. Finch exhaled, feigning benevolence in the conversation. "Here's the situation, Eleanor. Clients don't always grasp corporate structures. They aren't always privy to our operational procedures. When they offered you those tickets, well, that was truly more of a gift to the firm, not exclusively to you." I felt my stomach clench. "No," I stated slowly, keeping my voice level. "The email explicitly stated they were a personal thank you to me." He brushed that aside as a minor detail. "I understand that, but in this business, it's all about connections, and sometimes we need to make shrewd decisions. So, I will be utilizing the tickets." The world seemed to tilt on its axis. I blinked. "What?" "I've already made arrangements. I'm bringing a prospective investor to the game. It's a shrewd maneuver for the company," he explained. My heart hammered against my ribs. This couldn't be happening. Months of relentless effort, countless sacrifices, and he was simply seizing them? "That's unjust," I declared, my voice carefully controlled, attempting to contain the tempest brewing within me. "The client specifically gave them to me." Mr. Finch smirked, as if I were a naive child unaware of how the world functioned. "You should be grateful you have a position here," he said smoothly. "That's the genuine recompense." I swallowed hard, my grip tightening on the armrest of my chair. This transcended mere tickets. It was about principle, respect, a boundary that should not be transgressed. He patted my desk as if I were an obedient pet. "I'm sure you comprehend. And look, don't fret. You'll have plenty of other chances." I compelled myself to breathe, to blink, to maintain composure. Then I did something that even surprised myself. I smiled. Not a genuine smile, no. This was the kind of smile that concealed sharp edges. "Well," I said, my voice impeccably smooth, "enjoy the spectacle." He grinned, satisfied, and sauntered out as if he'd just done me a favor. He had no inkling of how entertaining Monday would be. The instant Mr. Finch exited my office, my forced smile vanished. My hands clenched into fists beneath my desk, my fingernails digging into my palms. He truly believed he could get away with this? I sat in silence for a moment, forcing my breathing to regulate. I couldn't afford an emotional reaction. No, if I wanted to exact retribution, I needed to be shrewd. And fortunately for me, Mr. Finch had just handed me the perfect opening. I retrieved the original email from my client and reread it. My pulse quickened as a strategy began to form. The key to bringing Mr. Finch down wasn't direct confrontation. That would lead nowhere. No, the most effective approach was to allow him to self-destruct. I sent a quick message to my client. Hey, just wanted to reiterate my thanks for considering me for those grand event tickets. It appears they were allocated to someone else at my firm. Hope to connect soon. Less than a minute later, my phone vibrated. Are you serious? Who took them? I smirked. Oh, this was going to be enjoyable. I feigned ignorance. Not certain, honestly. I just know I never received them. No big deal, though. No big deal? Those were intended for you. Let me handle this. Say nothing. Bingo. I leaned back in my chair, my heart still thrumming, but for an entirely different reason now. This was no longer a personal vendetta. This was a conflict between Mr. Finch and the client, and I already knew who would prevail. I spent the remainder of the day subtly gathering information. I knew Mr. Finch wouldn't be able to curb his ego. He'd have to boast to someone. Sure enough, around midday, I overheard him in the common area. Yeah, 40-yard line seats, it's going to be wild. Taking a big fish with me, you know how it is. These kinds of agreements are all about connections. I remained out of sight, stifling my laughter, the arrogance, the sheer idiocy. By the time Friday arrived, the office was abuzz. Mr. Finch was departing early, catching a flight that afternoon to the host city. He paraded around like royalty, smug and untouchable. I caught his eye in the corridor. Big plans this weekend? I inquired, keeping my voice light. He smirked. Oh, you know, just making power plays. Enjoy the event, I said, and I truly meant it, because by the time he landed, the snare would already be sprung. Saturday morning, I received an update from my client. I've arranged a meeting for Monday. Just go along with it. Trust me. I grinned. Oh, I trusted him. Sunday came and went, and with it, the major sporting event. I didn't watch a single moment of the game, not because I wasn't still a devoted fan, but because I was anticipating Monday. The true spectacle was about to commence. Mr. Finch strode into the office at 9:07 a.m., sunglasses on, coffee in hand, radiating the smugness of a man who believed he had triumphed. He barely acknowledged me as he passed my desk, heading directly to his office. I waited until the 9:30 a.m. meeting invitation appeared on my screen. Subject, client review, mandatory attendance. Location, conference room A. Attendees, senior partners Mr. Finch, client representative Eleanor. I clicked accept. Showtime. I entered the glass-walled conference room and immediately sensed the tension. Mr. Finch sat confidently at the head of the table, legs crossed, looking relaxed, but his composure wavered when the client entered. He wasn't alone. A woman followed him, someone I didn't recognize. But her presence sent an immediate shockwave through the room. The client took his seat. Mr. Finch, this is Ms. Holloway, VP of Corporate Collaborations. Ms. Holloway gave Mr. Finch a sharp nod as she sat. Mr. Finch blinked. Oh, of course, Ms. Holloway, pleasure to meet you. The client leaned forward, his smile polite but glacial. Before we delve into today's agenda, I have a query. Eleanor, did you enjoy the game? The room fell silent. I tilted my head, feigning bewilderment. The game? The grand event? I furrowed my brow. Oh, I didn't attend. The client's expression darkened. That's peculiar, because I personally arranged for you to have 2 seats. Isn't that right, Mr. Finch? Mr. Finch froze. A flicker of panic crossed his face, but he quickly forced a laugh. Oh, yes, you see, there was a slight mix-up. Eleanor wasn't able to attend, so... The client cut him off. So who did? Mr. Finch shifted uncomfortably. I took a client. The client allowed the words to hang in the air. Ms. Holloway cleared her throat. Mr. Finch, just so I understand, are you stating that you utilized corporate seats intended as a personal gift for an employee and bestowed them upon someone else without authorization? Mr. Finch swallowed. I. The client wasn't finished. I was genuinely looking forward to seeing Eleanor at that game. I believed it was a fitting acknowledgement for months of diligent work. But imagine my astonishment when I discovered she never even received them. Mr. Finch opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. Ms. Holloway turned to me. Eleanor, did Mr. Finch inform you of any corporate directive that would have necessitated you relinquishing those tickets? I shook my head, keeping my voice steady. No, he just told me they were his now. The room tensed. Ms. Holloway exhaled sharply. Mr. Finch, do you realize that you not only infringed upon internal ethical standards, but also committed what is essentially corporate misappropriation? Mr. Finch went pale. The client leaned back, shaking his head. I don't believe I can continue collaborating with someone who would undermine his own team in this manner. Mr. Finch jolted upright. Wait, let's just... The client turned to Ms. Holloway. I trust you'll manage the internal repercussions? She nodded, her expression inscrutable. Effective immediately. Mr. Finch knew he wasn't just in trouble, he was finished. And I? I just sat back and relished the unfolding drama. Mr. Finch's silence stretched across the conference room like a tightening noose around his throat. His face, usually smug and brimming with arrogant self-assurance, was now a shade of red verging on panic. Ms. Holloway, the VP of Corporate Collaborations, leaned forward, folding her hands together on the table. Her voice was smooth but imbued with authority. Mr. Finch, you do comprehend what this situation implies? His Adam's apple bobbed as he swallowed. He understood. The client exhaled, shaking his head. This isn't merely about the tickets, Mr. Finch. It's about trust, about professionalism, about knowing that when I choose to work with someone, they aren't going to betray their own employees for personal gain. Mr. Finch's jaw clenched. His fingers twitched against the table. He looked around, searching for an ally, but there were none. The other senior partners, who had been silent until now, exchanged uneasy glances. No one wanted to be associated with this debacle. I remained still, hands folded neatly in my lap. I didn't smirk, I didn't gloat, I didn't need to. The silence stretched until finally Ms. Holloway spoke again. Mr. Finch, did you expense anything related to this excursion? He blinked. What? She tilted her head slightly. Did you charge the flight, the accommodation, any meals, any transportation to the firm's account? The panic in his eyes was answer enough. The client chuckled under his breath, but there was no humor in it. You utilized company funds to take someone else to the grand event with the tickets intended for Eleanor? Mr. Finch attempted to compose himself. He sat up straighter, cleared his throat, and forced a thin smile. Listen, I comprehend how this appears, but I was considering the firm. I was cultivating a rapport with a valuable investor. The client cut him off. What investor? Mr. Finch blinked. Excuse me? The client leaned back in his chair, arms crossed. Who exactly did you bring to the game? Mr. Finch's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. Ms. Holloway tapped her fingers against the table. Mr. Finch, respond to the question. He hesitated, his mind scrambling for an alibi, for any escape from this predicament. I already knew the truth. Mr. Finch hadn't taken an investor. He hadn't taken anyone important to the company. He'd taken his brother-in-law, a man with zero business connections, no prospective deals, no justification for being at that game other than to consume overpriced beverages and relish the best seats in the house. And Mr. Finch had expensed every cent. I could see it on his face, the realization that there was no way out of this. The client shook his head. Unbelievable, he said. He turned to Ms. Holloway. I want it documented that my firm will no longer be conducting business with Mr. Finch moving forward. Mr. Finch snapped his head up. Wait, that's not... The client continued as if he hadn't spoken. If you'd prefer to designate a different senior partner to manage my account, I'm open to discussing that. He turned to me. Or, quite frankly, I'd prefer to deal directly with Eleanor moving forward. I managed to maintain a neutral expression, but inside, I was cheering with profound satisfaction. Ms. Holloway nodded. Understood. She tapped a few notes into her tablet. Mr. Finch, we'll be addressing this internally. I suggest you take the remainder of the week off while we review the situation. Mr. Finch's face drained of all color. He opened his mouth to protest, but then he saw the expression on Ms. Holloway's face, on the client's face, on everyone's face. He was done, finished, and he knew it. He stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. Without another word, he stormed out of the room, the glass doors swinging shut behind him. The silence that followed was heavy. Finally, the client turned to me, his expression softening. Eleanor, I wish to apologize. I should have ensured you received those tickets personally. I shook my head. You had no means of knowing. And honestly, I glanced at the door Mr. Finch had just exited. This worked out better. He chuckled. I admire your thinking. Ms. Holloway smiled, then slid a document across the table. Eleanor, since you're already handling the majority of the work on this account, I'd like to formally extend a promotion to you. My breath hitched. A promotion? I stared at the document in front of me. A substantial pay raise, increased authority, a title that placed me on par with the very individuals who had previously dismissed me. I swallowed, lifting my gaze to meet hers. Are you serious? She smiled. Absolutely. You've more than earned it. I exhaled, a slow grin spreading across my face. Then I accept. The client stood, extending a hand to me. Glad to hear it. And Eleanor, yes, next time I acquire major event tickets, they'll be sent directly to you. I laughed, shaking his hand. Mr. Finch believed he had stolen my reward. Instead, he had handed me everything I had ever desired. And the best part? Monday was just beginning. By the time I returned to my desk, the entire office was buzzing. People were whispering, casting furtive glances at me and at Mr. Finch's vacant chair in the corner office. News traveled swiftly in corporate environments, and when a senior partner stormed out of a conference room looking like he had just seen a phantom, people noticed. I sat down, attempting to suppress the smirk tugging at my lips. My inbox erupted with emails. Congratulations, messages of support, even a few stunned, what just happened? Pings from colleagues who had only caught fragments of the drama. And then a text from Mr. Finch. Mr. Finch, what in the world did you do? I stared at it for a second before typing back. Me? Not sure what you mean. I thought you were making power plays. I waited. No response, of course. I let out a slow breath, glancing at the newly signed promotion letter on my desk. I had won. But Mr. Finch wasn't finished with me yet. Mr. Finch's final gambit. An hour later, I received an email. Subject, HR meeting. Immediate attendance required. I clicked it open. Eleanor, please report to HR immediately. This is a mandatory meeting. I frowned. Mr. Finch wouldn't surrender without a struggle. I grabbed my notebook and proceeded to the HR office. The receptionist barely made eye contact before gesturing toward the glass-walled room in the back. Inside, Ms. Evans from HR sat at the conference table, looking uncomfortable. Across from her, Mr. Finch. He didn't look smug anymore. No, this was a cornered creature attempting to claw its way out. Ms. Evans cleared her throat. Eleanor, have a seat. I did. Mr. Finch leaned forward, false concern dripping from his voice. Eleanor, I truly hoped we wouldn't have to do this, but I need to address a very serious matter. I raised an eyebrow. Which is? He sighed dramatically. The firm has been reviewing some of your recent communications, and we have reason to believe you violated corporate confidentiality by discussing internal business matters with an external client. I blinked. Oh, this was the tactic? Ms. Evans glanced at me, then at Mr. Finch. Mr. Finch brought this concern to us this morning. Of course he did. He was attempting to invert the narrative, trying to portray me as the problem so he could salvage his career. I tilted my head. And what specific confidential business matters are we discussing? Mr. Finch folded his hands on the table. The emails you sent regarding the major event tickets. That was an internal issue, Eleanor, and you took it directly to a client. I let out a small, disbelieving laugh. Right, so you're suggesting that a gift intended for me personally, which was then stolen, is now considered an internal business matter? Ms. Evans flinched at the word stolen. Mr. Finch's jaw twitched. I wouldn't call it stolen. I cut him off. Really? Because the client did, in front of everyone. Silence. I leaned back. This isn't about confidentiality. This is about you getting caught, and now you're throwing a tantrum because there were consequences. Ms. Evans let out a careful breath. Mr. Finch, I understand your concern, but after reviewing the situation, I don't perceive any actual policy violation on Eleanor's part. His head snapped toward her. Excuse me? She glanced down at her notes. The client was the original sender of the gift. He had the right to inquire about it. Eleanor did not disclose private company strategy, financials, or trade secrets, only the status of something that was personally hers. Mr. Finch's face darkened. So that's it? You're just going to let her get away with it? Ms. Evans straightened in her chair. Mr. Finch, let's be clear. You're the one under investigation, not Eleanor. The words struck him like a slap. He started, but Ms. Evans cut him off. The expense reports are being reviewed. The client has formally rescinded their partnership with you. And now, after everything, you're attempting to retaliate against an employee who was just promoted by the company. Mr. Finch had nothing left, nothing to say, nothing to fight with. He had lost. Ms. Evans sighed, standing. Mr. Finch, I need you to vacate the room. Eleanor, you're free to go. I gathered my belongings, not even looking at him as I stood and walked out. By the time I returned to my desk, an email had gone out. Effective immediately, Mr. Finch is no longer with the firm. We wish him the best in his future endeavors. I read it twice just to be certain, and then, for the first time all day, I allowed myself to smile. Mr. Finch was gone, and I had won. But the best part? This wasn't merely a victory for me. It was a caution to every other arrogant, entitled boss out there. Never underestimate the individuals you believe are beneath you. They just might be the ones to dismantle you. The office was strangely quiet after Mr. Finch's abrupt departure. Oh, people were talking. Whispers in the hallways, stolen glances in the common area. But no one dared to utter anything aloud. The magnitude of what had just occurred was too immense. A senior partner had been ousted in front of everyone, and not by another executive, not by another man in a suit, but by me. I sat at my desk, rereading the official company-wide email announcing Mr. Finch's dismissal. His name was already purged from the directory, his office locked, his belongings already packed by HR. It was as if he had never existed. That should have been sufficient, but there was still one more thing to do. I pulled out my phone and scrolled to my client's number. He answered on the first ring. Eleanor, he said, amusement lacing his voice. I presume you've heard the news? I have, I said, keeping my tone light. Figured I owed you a thank you. He laughed. Oh, don't thank me. Mr. Finch did this to himself. You just provided him the rope. I smirked. Well, I appreciate you handling matters so publicly. There was a pause, and when he spoke again, his tone was carefully measured. Tell me something, Eleanor. Are you content remaining where you are? That gave me pause. What do you mean? Well, let's examine the facts, he said casually. You were the one actually performing the work. You were the one who established this account. The firm promoted you because they were compelled to, not because they desired to. And Mr. Finch's departure, that was your doing. I sat back in my chair, absorbing his words. I'm going to be candid with you, he continued. I don't particularly care for your firm. I tolerated it because I enjoyed collaborating with you. I blinked. Oh, a chuckle. Oh, he repeated, amused. So, let me simplify this. I want you to come work for me. My heart skipped. I, "You've already proven yourself," he said smoothly. "You're astute, strategic, and you don't allow people to walk all over you. That's precisely the kind of individual I want leading my business development team. And of course," he let the silence stretch, "I'll double whatever your firm is compensating you." I nearly dropped my phone. Double? Not a small increment, not a slight bump. Double my salary. I swallowed. "That's a substantial offer." He chuckled. "It is, and it's only equitable." I hesitated. This was unfolding too rapidly. I had just received one promotion. Was I truly about to discard it? And then I considered it. I thought about the years I had spent being undervalued at this firm, about the times my ideas were appropriated and repackaged by men like Mr. Finch, about how the sole reason I had been promoted was because a scandal necessitated their hand. Did I truly owe them anything? No, I didn't. A slow smile spread across my face. "Send me the offer," I said. "I believe I'm ready for something superior." By the next morning, my resignation letter was printed and signed. I walked through the office, my head held high, ignoring the surprised whispers and the not-so-subtle looks of admiration. Ms. Evans from HR looked genuinely astonished when I handed her the letter. "You're departing?" she asked, wide-eyed. I nodded. Received an offer I couldn't decline. She glanced at the paperwork, then let out a low whistle when she saw the salary. "Damn," she muttered. "Well, I can't fault you." I smiled. It was time. As I packed up my belongings, a few coworkers stopped by to congratulate me. Some were shocked, others weren't surprised at all. And then, just as I was about to leave, I received one final message, a text from an unknown number. "Mr. Finch, revel in your minor triumph. You merely got fortunate." I stared at the words for a long second before typing back. Me. Fortune had nothing to do with it. And with that, I walked out for the last time. A year later, I stood in my corner office, overlooking the city skyline. My name was on the door. My team respected me. My salary was more than I had ever conceived. And best of all, I was finally working for people who valued me. I scrolled through my phone and saw an industry news alert. Former executive Mr. Finch files lawsuit against former firm, claims unjust dismissal. I laughed. He was still trying to wage a battle that was already lost. I placed my phone down, leaning back in my chair. Mr. Finch had spent years appropriating credit, stepping over people, taking what wasn't his. And in the end, he lost everything. I, on the other hand, had gained everything. And that right there, that was the sweetest victory of all.